Hey guys, I'm Hannah Cox with Base Politics, and you're watching my show Histrionics, where every week we tackle women's issues from a centrist point of view. This week, we have got to talk about something that has been circulating mostly via YouTube and TikTok conversations, but that absolutely exploded on Twitter over the past couple of days. This poor sweet soul, this poor sweet man, he really stepped in it, guys, and the women are coming for him with pitchforks. I actually honestly feel bad for him, but I want to get into what he said and why it made the women so angry. Quick reminder, if you like these episodes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also donate to Base Politics. I will always include a link to our website in the show notes. And if you're listening on audio, I would definitely appreciate if you could go leave me a 5-star review. Okay, back to the subject matter at hand. I have been telling you guys on this series that women continue to do the vast majority of the labor in relationships. They do most of the physical labor, they do most of the emotional labor, the mental labor, the child rearing. And I say this over and over. I put links to my resources backing this up because it's not just anecdotal experiences. We have actual research studying this and showing this. And still, I have men in my comments saying,
I can't find this research. I don't know what you're talking about.
Which is actually just so ironic because they're kind of living proof of what the women are saying they are dealing with, which is weaponized incompetence, okay? If you can't use Google, if you can't use your little fingers that you're using to leave trolling comments to go and find basic resources online without a woman doing it for you, congratulations. You were one of the men we're mad at. Just to show you how easy it is to find these kinds of resources, I went to Google and simply typed in, women do most of the work in relationships, and AI quickly gathered this very helpful summary of what's going on for me. Yes, women across the world, not just in the US, continue to do the bulk of the work in the relationship, and it is exhausting, and it often contributes to women leaving their marriages. So when men say, women are the main ones to file divorce, women are the main ones to leave, and we say, yes, they're the main ones to do the paperwork, but they're often doing most of the other work as well. So number one, that follows. And number two, that is the problem in these relationships. It is not sustainable for women to do it all. This is simply not a tenable situation. And it's time that we talked about it because while women are doing the vast majority of work in the home, they are also really likely to be out working in the workforce as well. Women make up at least 40% of the workforce in more than 80 countries. And this is according to a Pew Research Center analysis of labor force statistics from 114 nations with data from 2010 to 2016. And they found that across all of these countries, the median female share of the workforce is 45.4%. So yes, a lot of women are working regular jobs on top of the work they're doing in the house with their kids and in their relationships. So that's a whole lot of labor and a lot of it's unpaid. I think women as a whole are completely done with the Sheryl Sandberg, you can have it all, lean in BS that they tried to sell us, I don't know, just even 10 years ago. And I don't know if you remember that time period, but I do because I was just out of college. And as you know, if you watch the show, I have always known that I didn't want to have kids and I really didn't want to get married till a little bit later in life. But I remember listening to that conversation and calling BS all the way back then. You can have anything you want. You can go after anything you want to achieve as a woman. But this narrative that you can have it all is bogus. It's exhausting. You have to pick and choose in life. You cannot adequately be everything that you want to be in 5 different roles. I think women did try this, especially during the third wave of feminism and up until 2014, 2015. These were the conversations that were being had. This was the narrative that was being pushed. And women did it and they tried it and they were like, hold up, this is not working. I cannot live like this. This is no life at all. And I also think somebody pointed this out in my comments a few weeks ago on another video, and I went back and tried to find it, and I'm so mad I can't find it. So if this was you, this was an amazing comment, and I completely agree with it. But basically, they were saying that when you look at what's happening with men and women right now, and you have all of these women who are getting degrees and getting good jobs and starting to earn a lot of money, and they're able to travel, and they're just achieving these lifestyles, and then they're looking around for a partner who's equal, who has a similar lifestyle than them. And they can't find one because men as a whole are not keeping up. And that person said a lot of these women who are in this point in their lives now, they're in their 20s and their 30s and they're hitting these kinds of milestones, They grew up with moms and sometimes grandmas who were trying to have it all or who didn't have the opportunity to pursue many of these things in the first place. And they've been telling them, go to college, get your education, get your money, don't depend on a man. And they listen. And so they hit the ground running and now they're up here. Whereas men did not get these same kinds of narratives or this same kind of like push from their fathers. And I thought that was a really, really accurate picture of what's been going on and some of the problems that we're left with now. Men feel women are outpacing them. They're turned off by boss babes. They don't like, when a woman is competing with them and wins. And so they're kind of over here sulking. And then women naturally want to be with someone who can keep up or who is maybe even a little bit better than them. Women are programmed to want men to be leaders. And so because you have this lopsided dating market, you have a lot of women that are choosing to stay single and to not have kids. And again, this is not just in the US. We see this around the world. The birth rates are collapsing in a lot of countries. But instead of addressing the root problems at play here, we've got a whole lot of politicians on the right that are trying to push pro-natalist, very big government, very anti-individual liberty policies to address this issue, instead of actually saying, let's go to the root cause of it and figure out what we can do to create a better structure where men and women like each other, can offer each other something, can get along, and want to get married and procreate. These problems are not going to go away on their own. Even if they were to get their blowhard, like very big government ideas pushed through, they are pushing policies that are working against people's natural self-interest. People are making rational decisions right now. I would say especially women are. When you look out and you cannot find a partner who is your equal, that's not going to be a good match. That's not really a good thing to try to push on women and say, forget that, you should partner anyways, you should have kids with those people anyways, and everything will be fine. Everything will not be fine. And we're hearing right now in the conversation I want to talk about today from women who have done that and who are very deeply unhappy right now with how it's going for them. Okay, so let's go to the post I want to base today's conversation off of. I feel so sorry for this guy, you guys. I combed his Twitter. He seems to be really well-meaning, lovely person. His name's Tyler Todd. And he posted this thread that was actually really about how he and his wife fixed their marriage. And it had, many different components in it. And a lot of it was very good, just common sense advice, like actually spend time together, pay attention to one another's love languages. But where he stepped in it, oh man, when I saw this, I was like, this man's about to get eaten alive. R.I.P. Tyler. And not to say I even have an issue with what he said, but I knew so many other women were not going to read this and give him the benefit of the doubt. So within this thread, he posts, tip for women. Most of us men really want to help but don't know how. Give us list items weekly we can take off your plate, and we love to help. Guys, ask her, what can I take off your plate today? The key is solid communication around this. We can't read minds. So the reason that I knew the internet was about to come for his throat is because, again, this conversation has been percolating online for some time. Women have been sharing their experiences of trying to figure out how to get their husbands to show up as equal partners in their relationships for some time. They've been talking about the burden of what they call the mental load. They've been talking about how unequal the distribution of work is in their homes and how it not only leaves them exhausted, but makes them unattracted to their partners. And I think what's interesting is that in response to these conversations and response to these anecdotes and personal experiences women are sharing, the reactions from men have predominantly not been great. Typically, what I've seen is a lot of men being in pure denial, like the men I mentioned in my comments that are like,
this isn't happening. You can't prove this is happening. I can't find any resources proving this is happening.
And they're just refusing to look at the fact that women are telling you in droves this is happening. I also see men becoming irrationally angry towards some of these women in their comments, saying this is why
men are done with Western women. This is why, poor guy, he needs to get a divorce. This is why men need to just stay single and not have wives to begin with. We're going to passport, bro.
It's dude, just at the very fact that you reacted like that, you don't realize what a problem you are. You're basically saying if a woman doesn't want to wait on you hand and foot and be your mommy, that you don't see any value in having a partner or being in a marriage with a woman, and that your response to that is to go to try to find women who do not have similar options and would have to settle for your dusty ass and traffic them back to America. Again, my passport bro episode is coming, guys. I promise. I cannot wait to come after these fools. But like, disgusting. You're gross. And then I think the third sort of response to it is more in the vein of what Tyler posted, which is excessively well-meaning men, okay? They really do mean so well. I genuinely believe they do want to help. They're not trying to take advantage of their wives or their partners, but they are giving very unhelpful responses. And I think that's how to best categorize what Tyler said, because the point goes right over his head. He just really misses the mark here, because in trying to be helpful, he is illustrating how unhelpful he is as a grown adult. No woman wants to have to make her husband a list of things to do as if he is a child. So I do understand some of the reactions Tyler got. I will say, though, some of the responses he got, some of the comments he got were really mean and nasty, and I didn't appreciate that at all, because I really did think he was coming from a good place. And I just want to say that, like, in general, when it comes to communication, whether it be in your relationships or whether it be in communicating with people online, we would all be really well served to, first and foremost, show a lot more grace, give people the benefit of the doubt, and acknowledge when somebody is trying to do the right thing but maybe still missing the mark. But what Tyler was doing, what he was expressing, is what a lot of women have referred to as weaponized incompetence in their marriages. And what they mean by that is that men who are grown adults will pretend to be nice, right? And maybe they're not pretending. Maybe they genuinely think they're being nice, but they're not being aggressive. They're not saying like, no, do everything around the house. I don't want to help you. Like, they're not in any way being demeaning, but they are not just taking initiative and actually showing up as a true partner. And oftentimes when their wives or their partners are like coming out and blatantly asking them to do things, they'll perform it poorly. They'll do a bad job of it because they don't want to keep being asked to do it, right?
Hey babe, I'm working a 12-hour shift today, so if we want to have some stuff to make for the weekend, I'm really not going to have time to go to the grocery store. Do you think you would be able to do that today since you have the day off? Yeah, I could do that. I don't know what we need though. Would you be able to text me a list? Of course I can do that. I'll send it right over to you when I get to work, okay? Alright, sounds good. Have a good day at work. Hey babe, I'm home. Hey, how was work? It was good. It was a pretty easy day. How was grocery shopping? It was pretty easy. I got in and out. I don't really know what you're complaining about all the time, but yeah, I got everything on the list. Okay, well, I really appreciate you going out and doing the grocery shopping, so I'm gonna run upstairs, I'm gonna get a shower and just change into some comfy clothes, and then when I come down, I'll start dinner, okay? Sweet, that sounds good. Honey, has this stuff been sitting out all day? Well, yeah, you told me I had to go grocery shopping. You didn't tell me I had to put everything away. Are you kidding? We have chicken, we have sausage, we have milk, we have eggs. You just let this stuff sit out for 12 hours? I don't get why you're making such a big deal out of this. I did something to try to help you and take something off of your plate. Well, yeah, now the problem is this adds more onto my plate, and now we're out $150 because all this food is wasted. Well, since I'm such a shitty boyfriend, I'll stop trying to help in the future and let you just do everything so it's perfectly your way.
Like, in my first job, I was a little eager beaver. I was just really excited to have a job. It was the Great Recession and just really wanted to impress my boss and like keep the job. And so I went to town. Like, I was the best worker. I knew how to do everything. And I still remember this day, I figured out how to like work the printer in the office, which if you've ever worked an office job, you know, is like not what you want to do because nobody wants to fool with the printer. It's a terrible, awful job. But if you let people know you're competent enough to do it and you figure it out once or twice, you will have to fix it every single time. They're going to always come to you to fix it. And so from that point on, every job I went to after that, I was just like, I played dumb as I could. Like, I don't know nothing about a printer, never seen a printer in my life. I'm the last printer I touched, I broke. It's that kind of behavior, but in the context of running a home or being in a marriage. And that's what the women clocked it as. I'm going to read you the responses to Tyler that I do agree with. I'm not going to read you some of the nasty and vile ones. I do just want to say, I really can't stand when anybody just gets piled on. I find it super unproductive and not helpful. And I just really want to address the women who did respond to him in that way and just point out, like, you're not doing anybody any favors, okay? This is a well-meaning person, and you could actually probably move the conversation a lot further, a lot faster if you were just kind. But of the responses I did agree with, and many of these made me laugh because, well, I'll just let you see. But One person responded to him and said, straight women are in hell. What do you mean? You can't look around your home where you live and see what needs to be done for it to function efficiently? How did the males ever convince anyone they're natural leaders? I mean, I return to this all the time, right? I'm constantly being told by like nationalist, far-right weirdos who want to repeal the 19th Amendment, who hate women, like, women are so emotional and men are the natural leaders and women should be able to vote and women shouldn't be in politics. And it's like, where is the proof of this in the room with us? Because I don't see it. I do not see men in society for the most part leading. And that's not to say all men. Of course, there are wonderful men in society who are leading, but they are in the minority. Another person said, to ask a woman to make you a list of what to do around the house implies that the house is solely her responsibility and you get extra credit for maintaining it. Counterpoint, it's your house too. You live there. You can see what's dirty. Clean it. Another woman said, this is what I call emotional labor. To delegate, to nudge, to remind, to make lists. It all takes emotional and mental energy too. Women don't need the men to, quote, help, but to take on responsibility. You are not a child. Grow up. This woman said, fun fact, women are not born with the ability to know what to do around the house. Maybe be a grown up and effing figure it out. We aren't your managers. And I just really do resonate with why this is so frustrating for women. Like, they act like women just come out knowing more than they do about adulting, and they need us to hold their hands and teach them and like guide them how to function. And it's so ridiculous. It's so infantilizing. And yeah, personally, I don't know how you could be attracted to it. Like this, gross. It actually like just gives me like goosebumps when I think about a man acting this way. This woman had a similar sentiment. She said, men created the world. Men are leaders. Men are more capable than women. Men are the most logical people. Men have better control of their emotions. Also, men, we need a list to tell us how to be a grown-up in a relationship. I loved this lady. She responded with this how to keep a clean home spreadsheet that has a list for everyday activities, weekly activities, monthly and seasonal activities. And it says how to keep a clean home. And she said, assuming you're being sincere, here's your list. Now you never need to ask a woman for a to-do list ever again. Another person put this cartoon up. I will describe it for those of you on audio, but it's a stick figure of a woman holding a plate with like a million different rings on it. And then there's a stick figure of a man with a plate holding one ring on it. And he has all these little thought bubbles coming out of his head. Like, how do I do this? How much do I use? Can you show me? Am I doing this right? This is dumb. Well, if you're going to be like that, I'll just never help again. And the person who put it up said, ask her what I can take off your plate today. Meanwhile, the visual representation of him taking something off her plate looks like this. Like, that is not actually helping. It's the same thing as when you have an intern, honestly. Like, I quit having interns because the amount of time you have to take to teach them to do the things you want to take off your list, you would be better served by just doing the things on your list. That is not how you should feel with your husband in your home, especially when we were just talking about rank and file things that need to get done throughout the course of a day. This lady put up a video. She said, you're not a helpless baby. You're an adult with a functioning brain. Learned helplessness isn't cute. And I'm going to roll this TikTok for you because it really is such an accurate skit.
Hey, you were right. I talked to Greg about helping out around the house and it went really, really well. Really? That's great. Yeah, he said he can definitely help. I just need to make a list. A list? Yeah, like a chore list. Oh, okay. And he's gonna make you a list? No. Oh, okay. Because you know what your chores are without having a list. Yeah, of course. Right. So, what's on his list? Well, take out the trash, put his clothes in the hamper, wipe down the sink after trimming his beard, obviously, put his shoes in the closet. Yeah, so, how did you come up with his chore list? Oh, I just looked around and, saw what needed to be done, what needed to be straightened up, and I just wrote it down. Yeah. That makes me think maybe the list could just have one item on it, and that one item could say, look around at what needs to be done and do it.
But anyways, as you can see, there was countless amounts of response to this guy. I mean, I think his original tweet has like 16 million views at this point. And it all kind of correlates around these lines. Beth McCall on Twitter said it's actually very important for younger women to see this sort of thing before they tether themselves to an adult toddler who will burden their lives for years, turn them into domestic robots, and later leave them when they have a medical crisis. And really, this is so much of what women are afraid of right now. Like, men, I think, have this fear of marrying somebody, having a kid, and then the woman choosing to leave and they have to pay child support or they have to pay alimony. And even though like that's not that common, like that is where their fear is. Women, on the other hand, fear getting into relationships with men because they fear being cheated on. They fear staying home and giving up years of their career for a man who may then cheat on them and leave them. They fear being left a single mom and the one having to actually take care of the kids by herself, because that is typically the case because men don't even ask for custody most of the time. And they fear doing all this for a man who may not even stand by them later in life as they age, which I covered on one of the earlier episodes of this series about how frequently men leave or cheat on their female partners when they are terminally ill. It's terrifying. There was a song that actually blew up on TikTok a few months ago. I'm not going to put it in the video because YouTube like constantly tries to copyright strike me if I put in music, but it was a woman talking about how women are so fed up with doing all this labor. Like, they are expected to be both a mother to men and to be a mother to their kids. And then they're also supposed to be like this like sexual goddess who's, you know, always up for a good time. Like, they have to wear so many hats and they are so tired of not being seen and treated as full people. Even some of the men started piling on him in this conversation. This guy quote tweeted him with a picture of a sink full of dirty dishes and said, "Honey, I want to help you. Can you make me a list of things to do around here?" And I think everything said here is fair game. These are very, very fair critiques. I've seen some people push back on some of this and say, like, men and women have different standards by which they live. And I don't really know that that's totally true. I mean, I think that really depends on the individual. Certainly, some people have higher standards of cleanliness than others. Like, I and my brother are pretty OCD and we're a little intense to live with. Like, I'm definitely very picky about the home. I really can't think or create in a space that's dirty. My husband is in no way a dirty person, but like, he is a more cluttered person than me. Like, he will leave things around. And I had to accept in moving in together that like, that was just going to be the case sometimes. There would be more stuff around. One, because I was living with another person, but two, because he is just simply not wired the way I am. He's very type B, which love that for him. But that is just reality. He accepted that I am a type A crazy person and that he was going to have to spend a lot more of his life and time cleaning. Okay. So I think that you can have differences and I think you can make compromises. But when you've got one person over here who is doing all of the work and one person who's not, this whole excuse of like, well, she just like sings neater than me. No, that's disgusting. If you're okay living in filth, you're not a full functioning adult and you need to grapple with that. That's weird and nasty, particularly if you have kids in the home. I did see this lady respond to him and she said, people are mad about this because why? He didn't say, and what you put on the list is the only things I will do. He's just literally like, if there are pressing things that you know would help the most to be done, could you tell us? It makes no sense that women are upset about this. Do y'all prefer to need a bookshelf assembled, but your husband decides to power wash the driveway because he has no idea on God's green earth how much more helpful bookshelf assembly would be to you on a given Saturday? Someone said, does your boss at work give you a list or do you just automatically do everything? Has this person never been given a list at work on top of everything they already do? Yes, bosses give list assignments sometimes. What is going on in these comments? I think there's a little bit of a fair pushback here. Like, certainly he didn't say this is the only thing he would do, and we don't really know what the ins and outs of his particular situation look like. But I think this is not really that helpful because the vast majority of women who are speaking out about these problems in their relationships and in their homes, that's not the situation they're discussing. It's not that their husband's helping a lot of different ways and just not doing the one or two things they really want him to prioritize. It's that they are doing all the work. They are making all of the appointments for their kids. They're taking them to all of their practices. They're the ones going out and getting new clothes, not just for their kids, but for their husbands. I saw somebody say, like, men, when is the last time you went out and bought socks or underwear or seasonal like clothes for your kids without being asked to do it? Women are just naturally picking these things up. They see things that need to get done and they just go do them. And they don't need anybody to give them a list. They don't need anybody to tell them what to prioritize. And that's what they are mad about. They're not really saying like, oh, he just didn't read my mind and happened to do this one thing that I wanted, but he was doing these 10 other things. That's just not the reality. That's not what we see happening. Even if it is a situation where you want them to prioritize certain things you need done, I still think that most of the time, adults should be able to pick up on that. Like, if my husband tells me he needs something from me, I recognize that that's what I need to get for him or do for him, and I do it in a timely manner. It doesn't mean I like do it instantly the moment he asks, but it is like present in my mind that like, okay, I need to make sure I do this for him. I don't need somebody making me a list as if I'm a child, even when it comes to their priorities or things they explicitly want done. Now, another pushback that I saw that I thought was an interesting take on this was from a woman named Melissa. And she said, woman here, my mom, who had a great marriage up until my dad's death, used to get frustrated with my dad for not seeing things or in her interpretation, ignoring things. He'd walk right over a dish towel that fell on the floor. He was a great dad and did a ton for his family. At one point, well into adulthood, I pointed out to her that I don't think dad was intentionally ignoring anything. I think he genuinely didn't register the need. I shared that I've had to train my own brain to not just see that dish towel on the floor, but to say, hey, a dish towel fell. It doesn't belong there. Pick it up. I can just as easily see something off, but genuinely not register that not only should an action take place, but I can take that action. Yep, there are plenty of lazy men and women. At the same time, brains are wired differently, and what may seem obvious to one person isn't obvious to another. Give my dad a list, he'll knock it out happily. Ask him to make the same observations that came naturally to my mom. He's set up for failure. And I think this is fair. You know, people are different, relationships are different, they require different styles of communication. That's natural. My husband is super ADD. And would he naturally like walk around a kitchen and see a whole bunch of clutter and have any instinct whatsoever to react to it? No. But because my husband loves me, because he'd gotten to know me before we got married, before I moved in, he very much does recognize that now. And when he sees me starting to move around the house and pick up stuff and move it, something clicks in his brain that says, oh, I should get up and help her. I should make sure that I assist her in this. Let me take some action because I see her working. And I am not, and it's my mess. And that's what I think blows my mind about what I hear a lot of women saying is it's not just the inaction. It's the ability for a man to sit there and watch a woman bending herself backwards to try to get everything done in a day and not have the instinct of like, oh, I should probably help her, right? To not treat your relationship and the management of your home as a business that you co-manage, right? I don't think men would like it either if they had to constantly stay on top of their wives like they were children and handhold them, right? That would be a huge turnoff to them as well, which is why we see them becoming irate when women talk about the fact they don't want to be the ones doing all the laundry anymore. They don't want to be the ones that are cooking all of the meals. This makes a lot of men really mad because they feel entitled to that labor from women. And that's the problem. I also saw this really ridiculous post. This account is just straight garbage on Twitter every day. It's from somebody called the Feminist turned Housewife. So you can kind of get the pick-me vibes coming loud and clear right from the top. But she said, yes, of course women are tired and get upset at having to make a list. We all would be if we had bought into the feminist lies. You work all day, same as your man, only to come home and be responsible for majority of childcare and housework. This is why feminism is a scam. It tells you over and over men and women are just interchangeable and they can both do the same things. When you get married, you'll quickly find out this isn't true and it never will be. Men make horrible mothers. How shocking. A lot of frustration in marriages comes from this new lie we believe, that all tasks must be equally divided because we are totally the same, right? Wrong. This is exactly why God gives us different roles, exactly because we aren't the same. You aren't supposed to work all day outside the home, trying to provide like a man, only to come home and still do everything there. Y'all got scammed. Thank the feminists for your frustrations. Yikes. Like, number one, feminism doesn't preach any of the things she just said. It actually pushes back. It actually says, no, women cannot and should not have to do all of these things. And it also says that women, just like men, should have the option to pick which things they prioritize in their own lives. If you want to be a mother, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, if you enjoy doing that kind of labor more than you enjoy working outside the home, great, go for it. Feminism has never in any way tried to restrict women from that ability or even pressure them out of it. The only thing I think feminists would say is be really careful. Protect yourself legally, protect yourself financially in that situation because you are making yourself very vulnerable. And many, many women have been harmed in those situations throughout history and even to this day. There is a reason women fought so hard to be able to work outside of the home. And it's not because things were just all rosy and great and they were like kicking it like princesses before feminism. This is just such a delusional, deranged like historically illiterate summary of what things looked like before feminism. I saw somebody on Twitter try to make this argument recently. Actually, they said before feminism came around, women were literally treated like princesses, doors held open, no financial worries, no exhausting jobs, and seen as too delicate to do tough work. Now women are expected to be just as tough and do all the hard work that should be reserved for men, shaking my head. And the post got community noted on Twitter, and the community note literally just says, this has never been the case, with a ton of resources. I mean, it just scratched an itch for me. But yeah, this has never been the case. The fact that they genuinely think this is what life was like for women before feminism, it's like a crackhead mentality. I don't know how else you could possibly think this. Women had to work really, really hard before feminism as well. They often had to do even more physically demanding labor in factories or in fields. They often were not paid for that labor. They had so few opportunities. I mean, like, it is just absolutely ridiculous to think that that's what life looked like beforehand. Women have always had to work. They most likely will always have to work. And having to work is not a bad thing. Without work, people tend to atrophy. Most people who don't not work are not very interesting. They don't offer a lot to society. Whether you're working in the home or outside of it, work is a good thing, but you need balance. And a woman should not be expected to do all of the work inside the relationship, inside the home, especially if she is also working outside the home. But I would say, she's a stay-at-home mom. Like, why is her job 24/7 and his is 9 to 5? A man should still be contributing to raising children, to making the household run, and to do the mental and emotional labor that is required to make relationships run too. The reality is that men have been infantilized by our society, by their boy moms, and often by their girlfriends, okay? I do want to call this out when I see women complaining about this. One thing that really irks me is that you should probably have some knowledge of what that dynamic's going to look like before you get married. I am always constantly shocked at the things I find out people don't discuss before they get married. I'm talking like whether or not they want to have kids, their finances, how they want to raise their kids, their religion. Like, this is crazy. The fact that you don't have some idea that this will be the dynamic before you get married doesn't make any sense to me. I think the reality is a lot of women really want to get married. A lot of women, I think, settle because they want to get married, and they ignore red flags and signs that this person might not be a good mate for those reasons. I also think before women have kids, there's not as much labor to do. And so I think these things really start to pick up steam once that dynamic changes. Women are different than men. I do think that women are more nurturing than men. They have a lot more emotional intelligence as a whole than men. They have a whole lot more programming, whether that be nature versus nurture induced, but either way it's there to look around the people that are near them and see what their needs might be and to try to meet them. And that's a great and wonderful thing that women bring to the table. However, I think it has been severely taken advantage of, and not just taken advantage of, but sometimes even legally enshrined so that men believe they are entitled to that labor. And even now that we have equality, that's why you see a lot of men really mad at feminism, really mad at the fact women have that equality, because they felt like they were promised something for free that they can no longer get for free, that they now have to either pay for, or they now have to either bring something else to the table that is of equal value to get. They really want men to be the leaders and protectors that they claim to be. But it's not happening, okay? There is such a void of that out in society. Because I know there's always some men in my audience that just simply cannot bear to hear things from a woman's perspective, I'm going to let a man say it for me as well. This is from Aaron Warner online. He said there's an
overwhelming trend in heteronormative relationships of men being particularly shitty partners while their wives do literally all the work until they either build up enough resentment to leave or completely destroy themselves and burn out. There are a lot of factors at play here, but one is a fundamental misunderstanding of masculinity. Oversimplification: there are two types of men in these dynamics: dominant men who provide a paycheck and think that's a good soul contribution, and men who do not subscribe to traditional gender roles and maybe even believe they do their part, but really just rest on the laurels of progressivism. It's not masculine to do so little. It's not masculine to expect things done for them. It's not masculine to control. Masculinity at its core is about devotion to your partner. Masculinity is emotional stability and patience and devotion. Calmness, not passivity. It's protection, but not only being big and scary, like have you eaten, is way more important. It's thinking ahead so she doesn't have to. It's so many things, but it's not I'm in charge, and it's not laziness, and it's not weaponizing competence traditional gender roles. For those men who like to see themselves as dominant, how is it leadership to not do your part in the house? How is it leadership to behave selfishly, forcing your partner to deny any sense of self? The only example you are providing is one for your son to avoid.
And I think that is such a mic drop because your sons are watching you. If you're a man like this, they are watching how you behave and they are learning how they themselves should show up in relationships down the road. And ultimately, for the men who are so concerned about your woman leaving you or like losing custody of your kids, like those are things, valid things to be concerned about, but they're also things you have control over. And one main way you have control over them is by showing up in your true masculinity, actually being a leader, actually being the strong one, and letting her step into her femininity. Most women would love to be more feminine, right? Even like aggressive boss babes like me. We love being able to turn off our brains. Are you kidding? We're exhausted. The fact that I can just think my husband has this and I don't have to worry about anything is one of the best luxuries in life. And it doesn't mean that I'm also not doing my part in the relationship. I am. But for women, when they know their man has it, when they know he's going to leave, when they know like he's got this, it allows them to be so much more feminine and sweet and loving. And like they talk about it all the time. That's what's so crazy to me. So you always think for, men out there, I'm like, women are giving you the playbook. They're telling you exactly what they're after. It's not that hard or complicated to figure it out. They're all over TikTok talking about how they love being able to turn their brains off when they're with their men. And I just think this is something, fortunately for those of us who had good dads, we were brought up in this way. We had men that were like this. My dad's a true leader. He was a true protector. He was a true provider. I don't think I knew how to put gas in my car until I got to college. Not because I didn't realize gas went in the car, but because my dad just did these things. He just got the car and would take it to get the oil change. He would go and put gas in it. Even if I was going on like a road trip, he'd follow me to the gas station and pump it for me. He was always looking out for me, and it always made me feel so safe and so secure. And he did that not because I wasn't competent, not because I couldn't do it for myself, but because it was how he led, it was how he protected, it was how he showed me his love. And I think that's what a lot of women are looking for in men, and sadly, they are not finding it. I like this tweet. This person said, if women started dating with the tacit intention of finding a live-in housekeeper, chef, babysitter, personal assistant who not only worked for free, but actually paid half the rent, if women said what men won't say out loud, we'd be trampled. And this is the stuff that continues to blow my mind because, again, I have talked about this before. I've backed this up with sources. There's countless women who are willing to share their experience in this regard. And yet you still have these red pill men saying like,
why bother getting married? There's no benefit for men in marriage. Women get all the benefits of marriage.
And then like the reasons that they think have all been debunked, including like the alimony and child support and custody issues they constantly bring up. Not true. I have a whole episode. I'll put a card in here. Like it's very, very easy to check the stuff and it doesn't line up. But on top of that, we also see over and over and over that men continue to get the vast majority of the benefits out of marriage. Women are bringing so much more to the table than they are, not to mention, on top of all this, just the fact that they produce the children these men want. And it's time that something gives. It's time that men improve. I really like this longer post from an account called Gift Lasta, and it's titled The Mental Load of Masculine Leadership. And he's talking about the issues that he and his wife had around some of this. He's also addressing this same post from Tyler, which he points out has 16 million rage views already. And he says that one time back when he first started getting his act together around family leadership, I was driving home the night before a trip. I remember thinking I need to call my wife and ask if I should fill the van up now or tomorrow on the way out. And it finally clicked. Why do I need to bother her with this? I can just decide and do it. After that, I saw it everywhere. There were tons of ways I was expecting her to make the call on things I could easily handle. When I started taking initiative, she got more relaxed. She started to trust me, and sex got more frequent and way better. It wasn't just that she had less stress. Rather, relaxing into me outside of the bedroom made it feel natural to do inside the bedroom. Great point. A lot of egalitarian types will say, we don't want leadership, we only want an equal partner. But I'm not sure. If it's just a colleague not pulling his full weight, why the rage? It seems deeper. There's an air of betrayal. How dare you? It's not just that this guy should be generally competent, it's that I'm stuck mothering the man who should take care of me. What about the guys who say, I work all day and she stays home? Why should I do her job too? But masculine leadership isn't about his job, her job. A captain of a ship is responsible for everything. He doesn't pull the ropes himself, but he knows how, and in an emergency, he'd jump right in. If you're the sole breadwinner, it makes sense that you delegate a lot of household leadership to her, but that means you notice it, appreciate it, and jump in when it's obvious that she's overloaded. Be the man of the house, take on the mental load, and when you embrace the suck, you'll find the yoke is easy and the burden is light. If men want to be the leaders, if they want to be the heads of households, then step up. Step up to the plate. But that, by and large, is not what is happening right now in American relationships or globally. And again, I think until you actually start to address these root causes and figure out ways for men and women to not only get along, but to actually benefit and find, true benefits of partnership from one another again, I don't think things improve. And I know I want them to. I don't want to live in a society where men and women are at each other's throats. I don't think anybody does. It's not pleasant. It's really toxic. It's going to continue leading to worse and worse partisan divides. It's going to continue pushing women more to the extreme left and men more to the extreme right. And nothing good comes from either of those pillars, okay? And I think the reactions to some of this is always going to be an overreaction, a push for big government, a push against individualistic policies. And as a whole, our quality of life will continue to decrease. I think people need relationships. I think marriage is good. I think families are good. But they're only good when they are fair and they're equal and where one person isn't being treated like an unpaid servant. So I thought this conversation was really interesting. I was happy to see it move more from TikTok to Twitter because there are just so many more men on Twitter versus TikTok, which is a more female-dominated platform. And I do think having these kinds of conversations is what we should be doing because you can't get through it. You can't get to the other side without actually addressing these problems and figuring out ways to improve and move forward. So I'm sure a lot of men did see this and were able to recognize issues that were perhaps appearing in their own relationships and maybe address them. I think if women were, again, kinder in how they address men in these circumstances and in the ways that they address their frustrations, it probably would be easier for men to listen to it. So if you're a woman who's been overreacting to some of this, I would keep that in mind. All right, guys, that's a wrap for this week. Let me know your thoughts. Can't wait to read your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. If you like this episode, don't forget to check out others in my series, Histrionics, here. And you can watch my other weekly show, the Base Politics Podcast, here.